Yeah, no, Stan, it's cool. I really appreciate it. Never been opened a Dickerson thing here. That's I really appreciate the gift. But I can't say the Rams are going to win opening day in Seattle. I appreciate that. If you want it back, I'll give it to you, but I can't say it. Okay. I got to go. All right. I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView. Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView, the August 7th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word. KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. Really happy to be back. I'm a week out. I got to broadcast from the road. It wasn't the same. I really didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the camp. It was hard not being in home base. So we're going to blast through a bunch of things. There's not going to be a trivia question today, but we're going to blast through some stuff happening in sports and then get to the Rams. John Johnson is back in the fold. And while I think that's a whole lot of good, I do think there's just one thing there that I just don't like about it, but it's not a deal breaker. All right, let's get on to it. The U.S. women's soccer team got booted out of the World Cup, and now suddenly, if you question anything about the women's team, you're unpatriotic, which is really hard to fathom considering how unpatriotic our women's team has been the last 7-8 years. They are highly unlikable. They were cocky, insulting to other teams, and they got it handed to them in the World Cup. And everyone's complaining, oh, it's because they're not winners. No one's going to like them. Yeah, America loves a winner. But America loves a winner that is likable, that they can root for, and that they're not insulted by in return. I think the poorest example of any women's team sports has been the American women's soccer team. It's not about the winning. It's likable. This team, if it had been likable, would have been they could have been bounced and never made it to the round of 16, and they still would have been heroes. Look at our men's team. It never does anything, not seriously, but they're always considered heroes because by and large, for the most part, they keep their mouths shut. And suddenly, now we're supposed to have pity for one of the bitterest people on earth is Rapono. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. To get what you want, you got to give what everyone else wants too, which is decency and kindness. And on top of that, you can love them, you can hate them, they can do whatever they want. But I think this is a great loss for communist kickball. I am not a soccer fan. Everyone says, well, the whole world plays soccer. Yeah, let the whole world play soccer. We play football here, NFL style. Anyway, other things coming up. Missouri HC. I don't know his name. I'm seeing his meme all over the place. I don't know what his name is, but I just sense he's trying to gain traction by saying, oh, yeah, it's all good for football, but are we considering how all these conference changes are going to be affecting the smaller sports with the travel and the sleep deprivation, and it causes anxiety and mental health issues. Can I just say that if you can't pay your way, sorry, not sorry, you shouldn't play. That's just the way it works. Football, and from much of it too, college basketball has paved the way for these teams that they can't pay their own way. And so when someone's paying your way, you kind of eat what they eat, you live where they live, you drive what they drive, right? And you put up with what they put up with. I'm always amazed. I do weddings, and before we even get started in the whole ceremony stuff, we make them go through counseling sessions. And then you find out that mom and dad are still paying for the groom's phone. The bride's car is still being covered by the parents' insurance. And they're going to be living under the roof or some house that's owned by the parents. And I tell them, you understand, you can do that, but you're going to be doing what they want you to do, not what you want to do. And if you don't like it, you better just keep your mouth shut because they don't have to. And that's how I feel about some of the smaller sports, the club sports, the different sports that shouldn't be intercollegiate anyway. Why does everything have to be intercollegiate? Maybe they could just play intramural on campus. But I don't know. I just didn't like the tone of the Missouri HC. I thought he was trying to gain some traction and look how I'm thinking about everyone else. You know what? The money that's being offered, I think it went from $20 million for these Pac-12 schools to somewhere $32 million. Yeah, I think you find a way to get along with that, right? I think you find a way. With that said, I'm going to miss the Pac-12. I was never a subscriber to the polls and declaring a national champion, especially after 1978. I know no one was around in 78, but I was around in 78. And one of my problems with the polls was where USC goes into Tuscaloosa, beats Alabama in 78, and then somehow the AP and UPI split on who the national champion is, and that's preposterous. You know, there was no head-to-head championship game, but during the course of that season, SC won in Tuscaloosa, and the idea they had to share the national title was an absolute joke. Thus, all the college football stuff was a joke. Thus, the big joke is coming back onto the NCAA because they've lost complete control, and I think it's a marvelous thing. But I am sorry about the Pac-12 going away. For me as a USC fan growing up, it was beat UCLA, beat Notre Dame, and win the Rose Bowl. Even if the team went 9-2 or 8-3, I didn't care. Do those things. Beat UCLA, beat Notre Dame, win the Rose Bowl, and the season is great. And it's a different ball game now. You have to put up with it. And that's just the way it goes. That's okay. I understand times change, and such. But yeah, it is sad to see the Pac-12 go. I've always been a Washington State fan. I'm curious to see where they land. The last thing I heard, Stanford was looking to play an independent schedule. I don't know. Someone let me know. Okay, Desperate Dead period material, which is just amazing. That stuff is still out there. So much of the KBM is complaining that, oh, there's nothing to talk about because they're in camp and it's just preseason. And I'm like, really? Were you around in July when there was nothing to talk about? And it's just a constant whining from the KBM. But Pro Football Network, the NFL Network came out with its top 100, and Aaron Donald is ranked 11th best in the NFL. And I just couldn't believe all the places I heard talking about this. Who gives a rip, right? Let Aaron Donald give a rip, and then let him be angry or whatever he wants to be and be highly motivated to go bust some skulls, you know? I don't care. Why is this an issue? Fans get all up in arms and everything get all worked up. They're just trying to get you worked up. The KBM, they're just trying to get you worked up so you can give them some clicks. Saw the Hall of Fame game on delay, and I can tell you how that happened. I recorded the game, and that notorious individual, Steeler fan Rob, who lives in Missouri, he texted me the final score. Yeah. I think the whole world knew I was at camp last week, recorded the game, and Steeler fan in Missouri, Rob, I'll post his picture again because he's done this to me in the past. He texted me the final score before I could watch the game. So when I finally watched the game, I just watched for certain players. It's really interesting how ever since especially Aaron Rodgers took that salary cut and went to 2 for 75 rocks, the whole perception of Donald of Rodgers is changing, and so it's going to be really interesting. I did enjoy seeing Zach Wilson play. He did make a couple of throws that were nice. And my word to Zach Wilson is, if the dude can be patient for 2 years, watch, learn, digest, he might be in the perfect situation to have his head catch up with his talent, and his ego to catch up with his talent, and his maybe not ego, his humbleness catch up with his talent. Because I thought he looked pretty good, and there is a place for him, you think, in the NFL. The Browns, former UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR. I was never a fan of him at UCLA. I just thought, he's just a guy. But he played very well last night. Or not last night. That's when I finally sat through the whole thing. But DTR looked good, and I'm kind of excited for him going forward because obviously to do what he does, he is a hard worker. And again, it's easy to get behind a hard worker. Not so easy to get behind people who always say America sucks. So there you go, right? And this is why I like preseason football. And I don't care about not seeing stars during the preseason. I just care about seeing desperation and passion, right? My team could lose and it can hurt, but if they play their hearts out, they endear themselves to you. This was the Rams in the 70s, right? This was Jack Youngblood playing on a broken leg. Much is made of it. We know. I don't go there too much, but you just loved your team. You loved how they strived, and you knew the journey they had been on, and you want them to get over the hump, but they just don't quite make it. And you love those players who give everything they have. I had a thing for Ernie Shavers when I was a kid. We loved Joe Frazier because he wasn't near as talented as Muhammad Ali. And you just love that great story. You love that effort. And you still like to see greatness, but you want somebody you can root for. And so as I'm watching preseason football, I can't help root for those young men as they're trying to make a team, trying to eke out a career, trying to make something happen. You know, if not for preseason football, would we have a Kurt Warner? If not for preseason football, would we have a Terrell Davis? Would we have these things? And no, I don't need to see the stars. I like to see who's going out there, where everyone's lining up. If you love the game, which the KBM doesn't, they love clicks. If you love the game, you're going to be all into it. And I got so sick of hearing about how there's nothing to talk about but preseason football for 3 weeks. Preseason football's great. We have additions, we have subtractions, we have a guy coming to the end of the line because he fails his physical, and you have somebody who's coming out of nowhere to get a great paycheck for a few years. And it's engaging, it's interesting. You know, if you ever played ball in the park or in the community center growing up, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, everyone's down there, and you have to shoot for teams, and there's always two guys fighting for who called next and all that kind of stuff. And you get on the floor, and a game gets so heated that it is literally one loose elbow away from turning into a sequel to The Warriors, right? And it's so intense, and you're so invested. You know, you can't help but love it. And I see passion, and I see in football in August, I see respectable ball, but I just love seeing players fighting for their lives, fighting for their careers, fighting for their dreams, and I just can't stand the whining. So mark me down as somebody who loves preseason. Do I think preseason is necessary? You know, they could play 2 games and just let these young guys slug it out and be ready, and I'm good with that. They can play all the inter squad matchups with other franchises. That's all cool too. But I do definitely think the preseason is necessary. At least 2 games, just for the undrafted free agents, right? It's a good thing to see. Okay, around the NFL, that guy, Justin Houston, finally signed with the Carolina Panthers. Good for him. Working into his 10,000th season. He's out there, and so good for him. Philly signs Miles Jack, former UCLA guy, and Zach Cunningham. Miles Jack was 36th overall in 2016 by the Jaguars, and Cunningham was 57 overall in 2017 by the Houston Texans. And Philly signed them both, off-ball linebackers who can still play, I think. They can contribute, but they're off-ball linebackers. And by waiting until August the 7th, August the 6th to sign them, they saved a truckload of money. Minnesota signs N'Keal Harry. He was originally 32nd overall, first round, 2019 out of ASU, drafted by the New England Patriots, and he has been nothing but a literal bust his whole time in the league. And so hopefully he makes it. Arizona signs the enigmatic Marlon Mack, who had some great runs, literally runs with the Colts, and has bounced around ever since. He's a talented back. They waited to sign him, and they got him at a great deal. Chicago signs Mercedes Lewis, former UCLA tight end. This is his 3rd team. This will be his 18th season. He was drafted 28th overall out of UCLA in 2006, and he's still making a difference. He's got over 400 catches in his career, and it seems like the last 20 years he's just been used as a blocker. Indy also signs Kenyon Drake. One interesting cut was MJ Anderson, an undrafted free agent that Seattle signed out of Iowa State, a defensive end, edge guy. He was cut, which was interesting. Anderson stood out because he also played with Will McDonald, the guy that played for the Jets, who looked pretty good on was it Thursday night, playing in the Hall of Fame game. And Anderson was on that short list. You know, players the Rams might be interested in, maybe a 7th-round pick, maybe a UDFA they could sign. And so everyone thought that, okay, he's got some juice to make it in this league, and Seattle cut him before their first preseason game. And so I thought that was interesting. And of course, my friend Steve Ramirez, Sports Writers Deluxe, sent me a text or tagged me in a post. Bobby Evans, Bobby Evans' second go around with the Vikings is over, and it looks like his run in the NFL has to come to an end. Goodbye. I hope Bobby Evans has a great life. I really, really do. Okay, so big news for the Rams. Besides some of the other players they signed, let's get to the other players first. They signed tight end Cameron McDonald. I think he's a Florida State dude. Played out here in Long Beach, I think. And he's a dude. Kiko Kalenic, the tight end, the guy that was from Canada, played for the Colts. These guys are roster fillers because right now you got Hopkins, you have Higbee, and you have Christian Sims, the UDFA tight end. Because Hunter Long and Davis Allen seem like they're going to be out longer than we initially thought. And so they need some bodies in camp. And so it'll be interesting to see how everything tracks with Hunter Long and Davis Allen. And what an opportunity for Kalenic and the newly signed Cameron McDonald. Nothing spectacular about him, but yeah, it's a shot for him, right? Next week, it'll be an interesting game just to see if he gets any reps. And same thing for Royce Freeman. It's a chance to hang on to your career, make a nice paycheck. Warren McClendon is off the PUP list. And then I saw this. Actually, I heard this. On Monday last week, I was mentioning how we saw Logan Bruss at right tackle, okay? I'm Joe. I'm a small fish in the aquarium, right? And later on in the week, I'm hearing it like it's the scoop of the century. Why wouldn't Logan Bruss work out at right tackle? McGlendon is gone. There's a lot of talent there at guard. Coleman Shelton, Tremaine Anchorman, even possibly Alaric Jackson, who took snaps there last year, if Joe Noteboom ends up keeping left tackle. And I think there was also some pictures or images I saw this week of Joe Noteboom lining at right guard. Why wouldn't Logan Bruss take every chance, and why wouldn't they take every opportunity to see what Logan Bruss can do at right tackle and give him an opportunity to be flexible? Look what flexibility gives you. Alaric Jackson can play guard and tackle. Look what this does for Coleman Shelton, center and guard. Brian Allen does not play guard. He is a center. So that kind of narrows him down a little bit. So I don't think it's some big scoop that Logan Bruss is playing right tackle or that he's a total bust at right guard. I have a lot of confidence in Tremaine Anchorman, and it'll be interesting to see, again, how this shakes out when the games are being played. I got a speculation here, but before I get to that, let's just say the Rams have signed John Johnson. JJ is back. We know they don't re-sign their safeties, let them go away, and then they bring them back. But yeah, he was a painful subtraction after the 2020 season. He got his money from the Browns, and it didn't work out great for the Browns. I don't know if it's a system, new system. He didn't have any big injuries. And I'm happy he's back. That is just a voice of experience in a defense that's still relatively familiar to him. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I like it. I like the idea of somebody being there helping Jordan Fuller. But the part I don't like about it is that I don't like delaying the development of Quentin Lake, Russ Yeast, or even Jason Taylor II. Johnson's on a 1-year deal, so we don't know what that means for next year. And Fuller is down to his last year. He's a free agent after this year. So chances of him coming back aren't very good. So those younger safeties do need to get snaps. But what signing Johnson makes me think, is it's a subtle sign that the Rams, again, we've known this. It is not a full rebuild. I think people like to say that, but I think it's people who aren't studying the team that I think they see in this weak NFC, they might have a shot. And Trey Lance is not so great. Sam, Sam, I'm sorry, I forgot his last name, up in Frisco, the former USC court. Sam Darnold's not looking so great. No one knows what Brock Purdy's going to be like going around. So I don't know. This is a little wisdom, a little insurance in the secondary, little wisdom, little insurance when you're facing the Seahawks, when Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and and NGB could come up and are lining up split out, and it'll be interesting to see. A John Johnson on the field who has experience in those games, meaning the Rams might think they're going to peel off a few games this year, go beyond 6.5 wins. We did our projection, and it was a little favorable because there was some going back and forth in terms of the Giant game and in terms of the Raven game. But I could see the Rams in a great season, in a good season, finishing 9-8. And I think a John Johnson helps make that possible. But you just want to see a little more I don't know. You want to see a little more playing time for Lake and Yeast and Taylor, since both Johnson and Fuller likely won't be back next year. Suggestion of the day. I thought of this earlier in the year. I mentioned it in the offseason. I am not a huge Van Jefferson fan. I think he's good. I think he's competent. But Jefferson's in the last year of his contract. And the other thing I'll ask is, has he done anything to really warrant a second contract worth some decent money? I don't know. To me, he's a good guy, but there's a lot of good guys. And I think we got a good guy in Demarcus Robinson as he keeps showing out in practice. I was there. He made the catch right in front of me. One of his spin jobs, reach back for the ball. And I don't know if Van Jefferson is better than Demarcus Robinson. He might know the offense better, but I don't know if he is better. And he also has that ability that Van Jefferson doesn't have, and that's called the contested catch. And that's the same reason Allen Robinson was brought in here last year, because of the contested catch. And so my feeling is that right now, and we'll have to see preseason, maybe that Demarcus Robinson can fill Jefferson's shoes while the younger receivers develop. I don't know. Is that a little too far-fetched of a reach? Tim Patrick went down in Denver. They've had some other issues that surfaced up about a week or so ago. And you have to wonder, would Denver be willing to give up, say, a 5th rounder for Van Jefferson? And that kind of excites me. That's adding another pick. And I like Van Jefferson. I don't dislike him, but I think Demarcus Robinson could play his spot. And I think we do want to see Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, and some of these other guys develop, don't we? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see. No Kistler Law trivia question of the day. Getting back into the groove of things, and we will be going from there. So on this date, no, let's do the commercial. Should we do the commercial? I'm Joe Tarosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and I worked at Mid-Valley News as a sports editor, and various other websites. And now I do this. I host RamView, and I write books. And my books are on Amazon under Joe Tarosian, and you can type those in. I've written 2 high school football novels that were well received. Also 5 other books of a Christian nature. There are novels. And that's how I support myself. I do RamView and I write books so I can support myself in my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Virtual. In fact, our channel is right here on YouTube, Burbank Faith Virtual on YouTube, and also burbankfaithvirtual.com. And if you have any questions, you could ask us. We are on, in some connection, all the basic, the big 3 of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, also our own website, burbankfaithvirtual.com. So check us out. And thank you so much for the support for those who have joined us and the clicks and the likes. We thank you so much. All right. On this date in 2016, former Ram defensive end Larry Brink died at the age of 92 in Redding, California. How does that affect the price of lettuce? Well, it's interesting. I love looking back, and one of my favorite books to read was this one right here, the 1951 Rams. Stan gave me this, trying to get me to say nice things about the Rams Seahawks, but I bought this because Ram podcaster Derek Ciapala had a hand in putting it together, and it's a fascinating book. But Larry Brink was a defensive end for the Rams. He was drafted 17th round. Now, smaller league in those days. He was drafted in the 17th round in 1948, 150 overall, out of Northern Illinois. Now, to think that the scouting was so good, right? That the scouting was so good that that they found a guy in Northern Illinois all the way from LA. And he played at 6'5", 236. So he was a big dude for his generation. He ended up playing in 3 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro seasons. And he was a member of the 51 title team as well as a member of the 50 and 52 finalist teams that lost in the finals. He wore, if you see old highlights, he wore number 63 in those years. In his last 2 years, 1952 and 1953, he wore number 83. And in 1954, he was traded to the Bears for Bobby Cross, and he only played 1 year there before retiring. But I thought Larry Brink deserved a mention. Played until he was about 30 years old, went on and had a successful life. He was only 92. Well, he was only 92. Well, biblically, if he was going to live to be, 800 years old, he was only 92. But in our lifespan, 92 was a good run. Okay, that's the interesting part. And this is just Joe going full nerd. Brink was traded for Bobby Cross, a tackle with the Bears. And Cross played for the Rams for a year. And then he was traded to the 49ers for a third-round pick, 27th overall in 1957. That guy turned into George Struger. He was a defensive tackle, and he played a few seasons with the Rams. And in 1962, the Rams sent Struger to the Steelers for a fifth-round pick in 1963. I think it was in 62 when the Rams got their hands on by that time, they'd already gotten their hands on a Deacon Jones and a Merlin Olsen. And so that fifth-round pick in 63 turns out to be a guard. His name was Don Chai. You might have heard that name before because he was a backup for the Rams for a number of years, and you just see his name in old NFL stuff. And in May of 1969, Chai was traded along with Joe Corolla, another offensive guard, offensive lineman, and Irv Cross, the old NFL Today guy. They were traded to the Eagles for Jim Nettles and a future Hall of Famer named Bob Brown. So big deal, Joe? I don't know. You get a 17th round pick, okay? You go to 3 titles with him as your defensive end. You win a title, and then you trade him. And the way that trade works with the players you acquire leads all the way to the acquirement of, in 1969, of a future Hall of Fame right tackle named Bob Brown. I love that kind of stuff. That stuff to me is fascinating. Finally, as we move to a close here and get back into the rhythm this week, it was Hall of Fame weekend. And I loved watching the Hall of Fame stuff. It was really cool. What I could see of it, when Eric Coryell, when Don Coryell's daughter says Eric Coryell is officially landed in Canton or whatever, I thought that was like, man, that was just a great tribute to her father. And he was a contributor. Didn't win a Super Bowl, but he was what would the NFL look like without Don Coryell? And again, that gets me thinking, what is the NFL like without a guy named Don Klosterman? And Don Klosterman has been lost to history, the former Ram GM who had a bad ending under the devil herself, Georgia. And it's about time that Don Klosterman gets a revisit as we look back. I mean, they made Chuck Howley wait 50 years to get in, and Don Klosterman died back in 2000. But maybe Don Klosterman needs to get a revisit. And there's some noise percolating among some fans and a family member about getting a good look at Don Klosterman. And if you're a Ram exec, because I know Uncle Stan, he likes me. Maybe what you can do is do a little boost for Don Klosterman. The affections of the fans that you came back to in 2016, where those fans were largely built because of that success in the 1970s, and Don Klosterman was a key part in that. And so let's look at Klosterman's record here. He came on with the Chargers as a scout, and he was part of the signing with the Chargers of Ron Mix, Ernie Ladd, Keith Lincoln, local kid, Monrovia, John Hadle, and Lance Allworth. So, wow, there's some heavy hitters there. There's at least 2 Hall of Famers and some really bad dudes, and Hall of Very Good and John Hadle. He moved to the Chiefs as a director of player personnel. Lamar Hunt specifically hired him, and he was key in the signing of Buck Buchanan, Ed Budd, and Mike Garrett. All right, score some more for Don Klosterman. He moved on from there to the Houston Oilers, and he was general manager. His first pick was Tommy Nobis. Now, Tommy Nobis ended up signing with the Falcons, but he had a great career. But he also drafted George Webster, Zeke Moore, Ken Houston, and in successive years, let me point that out, 67, 68, and 69, he drafted Ken Houston, Hall of Famer, Elvin Bethea, Hall of Famer, Charlie Joyner, Hall of Famer, and for a time, the NFL's leading receiver. He even drafted this weird kicker named Roy Gerela, who won a bunch of Super Bowls for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Has a GM for the Baltimore Colts for 2 seasons. He didn't have a long run, but he did end up drafting players who impacted the team, and one guy who kicked them to a Super Bowl. There was Norm Bulash, who played 10 years in the league, Don McCauley, who did the same, and Don Nottingham, highly, very efficient running backs, short yardage guys, could catch the ball out of the backfield. He drafted a defensive end named Billy Newsome, who averaged 8 sacks a year when they weren't keeping sacks. And Newsome had a knee injury that cut short his career after he got to New Orleans. And then he also drafted the guy that kicked the winning field goal in Super Bowl V, and his name was Jim O'Brien. And you're going to think, big deal, the guy kicked the winning field goal. It is a big deal. He was a straight ahead kicker. And you know, when you watch those straight ahead kickers, man, outside of Mark Mosley, nothing was automatic. And O'Brien was in his second year out of Cincinnati, and he kicked the winning field goal in Super Bowl V. I'll always appreciate Jim O'Brien because the team he beat in Super Bowl V was the Dallas Cowboys. And so Jim O'Brien will always be in my cool book. And then, of course, Klosterman moved on to Los Angeles. Now, for a long time, we're trying to figure out when he took control as the GM. There was a gentleman named Bill Barnes who was handling the team in 71 when they were in transition after owner Dan Reeves passed away. And the deal wasn't announced until about July 12th or July 14th of 1972 for Carol Rosenblum to literally trade franchises with Bob Irsay, who bought the Rams, and then he swapped them with Carol Rosenblum because there was going to be some capital gains issues that allowed Rosenblum to get out of that situation and stuff. So he comes to the West Coast, and they only traded owners, right? And everyone else stayed intact. And that didn't get official until I think the 3rd week of July. But there was part of me that was wondering if Don Klosterman had, maybe knowing that negotiations had been in the works, maybe had come over sooner. It's very uncertain, but also I think it's highly unlikely that since the draft was held on February 1st of 1972, and I don't think Klosterman would have been in charge. But however, if he had been in charge, that would have meant the Rams got Bertelsen, McCutcheon, Larry Brooks in that draft. And then a few days before that, that was the Deacon Jones deal that sent him to the Chargers, where the Rams netted in the draft Jim Bertelsen in 72 and Colin Bryant in 73. Even if you don't give Don Klosterman the 72 draft of the Rams and that trade, you do give him credit for the Roman Gabriel trade. You do give him credit for the John Hadle trade. You do give him credit for all the moves that he made that packed the Rams and built the Rams up, because they just kept drafting star after star after star and finding value everywhere along the way. And his struggle was Rosenblum was meddling. And then, of course, after Rosenblum died, he was basically put out to pasture. So when you look at the 1982 and the 1981 Ram drafts, he had very, very little say in those drafts. And so I think when you look at his whole career, when you see the players that he brought into this league, I'm looking at 1, 2, 5, at least 5 just from his AFL days, Hall of Famers. You're looking at some special stuff here, players and deals that he made that were absolutely incredible. And so this guy deserves Hall of Fame recognition, and we should make sure that he gets it. All right, I think we're good. Let's check into next week. Okay, well, maybe we won't check into next week. Next week we'll be starting back on looking at the teams the Rams are playing and looking at their offenses. As we went through the defenses, we kind of locked them in at 9 and 8. And then on Wednesday this week, we'll go back to our Kistler Law trivia question of the day. And I think other than that, I think we're cool. Really good to be back. Thank you so much for your support. Please hit like, share, subscribe, notification button, as we've really made some impact here, and we're excited. And we will work hard not try to give you the fluff. Put it this way: when you come on this show and watch our show, I'm not going to waste 5 minutes telling you how good Cooper Kupp is. I'm going to respect the fact that you know how good Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald are. I'm always amazed. It seems like when people are telling you how good they are, they think you're stupid, or they just don't have anything to talk about. And there's always stuff to talk about when you're talking the Rams and the NFL. All right. God bless. Take care. We will see you soon.